this is Chris again, and we're going to explain how supply and demand of a country is affected by a foreign supplier and how that really changes quite a lot of things. So we know about supply and demand. First, we have the supply line here, which basically says, how much suppliers or businesses are willing to sell at a certain price. If it's priced at $12, they're willing to sell 12 pieces, but if it's priced at $1, they can only sell one because they want to profit the most for their business. Now, what happens for demand? People are going, this is where you are. If you say if people say hamburgers are going to be priced at $12, there's probably going to be one out of the 12 people among you guys that say, yeah, a hamburger could be worth $12. But if it's priced at $1, all of you are probably going to say, yeah, it's worth $1. I'm going to buy it since it's only worth $1. And so we want to talk about how this affects the market when it comes to supply and demand. So let's talk about the normal one first. So we know that this is equilibrium. This is where people say this is what it should be priced. It's where the amount of sellers are willing to sell that much units, and it meets the number of people that meets to a certain price, or the amount of sellers is equal to the amount of buyers, and that's here at $6. Actually, let's erase that first. Let's say it's worth $6. So now that we know it's worth $6, we want to talk about how much people are happy, and so we're going to talk about the consumer surplus first. Consumer surplus is basically the area of how happy people are, and that's going to be below the demand curve and above the price level, which is $6. And that's the area right there. And so the formula to get that, you just have to calculate base times height, and then you divide that number by 2. And basically we have here 6 to 12. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's consumer surplus. That's the area of happiness for you guys, for consumers. We have the base, which is 6, times the height, which is 6 as well, because this is right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Times 6 over 2. And we know that's going to be equal to 18. And we do the same thing here at the bottom. But the only difference is in definition, really, and in names. So this is what you call a supplier surplus. And a supplier surplus basically says this is how happy the sellers are. And it's going to be equal since we're at equilibrium. And divide by 2 is equal to 18. Okay, we're good on that? So that's the area of happiness for suppliers, and then the area of happiness for buyers. All right. And we want to talk about how foreign markets or foreign suppliers affect the supply and demand that we have. So the price level is going to be there. And when we talk about hamburgers, we immediately think of McDonald's. Right? So we do McDonald's right here. I'm going to put there McDonald's. And they're from the USA. They're a local brand. Okay? So everything's fine. It's normal if McDonald's is the only one that sells hamburgers. Well, let's say that there's a foreign supplier, someone from outside the United States says, hey, we're going to sell hamburgers to the United States. And let's say it's going to be Jollibee. And we can say it's from the Philippines. Okay, so we have Jollibee from the Philippines, right? And the thing about Jollibee is it's not going to price it at $6. Why? Because it doesn't cost them that much to make hamburgers. They have some sort of competitive advantage. And that advantage is, let's say they have a lot of livestock and it's easier to raise cows. It's going to be cheaper for them. McDonald's probably has the same amount of cows, but it costs them a lot more to make that beef, to make the patties that they need for hamburgers. For Jollibee, it costs a lot less. And so guess where Jollibee's supply line is going to be? it's not going to be here, this blue line that McDonald's has. It's going to be different. Let's say it cost them only $3. And they're going to say, hey, since it doesn't cost that much, we don't need to charge other people that much for the product or service that we have. So let's say their supply line is going to be here. And so what this is basically going to do is this is going to say, hey, person number one, if we provide hamburgers that cost $1, then it will be right here, $2 right here, and $3 right here. That would still go to McDonald's. McDonald's can say, hey, we can price it at this much, but we'll only give you this much. And the customer is going to be like, fine, okay, yeah. So these first 3 customers is what McDonald's will get. But guess where the rest of them is going to go? Because let's say it prices at $4, McDonald's is going to say, we can charge you that. We can charge you at $4. But customer number 4 is going to be like, I don't think hamburgers are going to be that expensive. I don't think it's worth $4. So instead of paying a higher price, customer 4 is going to go here to Jollibee because he's going to think that since it's not worth $4, but Jollibee sells it at $3, he's going to go here. And likewise with customer 5. Customer number 5, his price needs to be at $5 so that McDonald's can still profit. But since Jollibee sells it at cheaper, he's like, it's still going to be $3. Customer 5 is going to be like, okay, I want to go to Jollibee then because it's cheaper. And so we know how this is affecting the market now because it changes where people go. And so equilibrium used to be right here. But now with this new competitor, equilibrium is going to be down here. That is where it's going to be. So right now, we see that. So right now we see that. And so how does this affect the consumer surplus? So we remember earlier that we had to calculate it. And so the consumer surplus area, that's interesting. It's going to be right here, $3. That's the price level. And that's equilibrium. It's going to be right here. And so we know the formula. Let's calculate the formula. Okay, let's fill it in first. Let's fill in with the red. Okay, that is consumer surplus. You notice it's going much bigger. And we like that because we're the buyers. We like cheaper hamburgers. And so consumer surplus is going to be here. And it's going to be 1/2 base times height. So let's get the base is, so starting at 3, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The base is 9 times the height. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Divided by 2, it's got to be 90 and it's going to be 45. So consumers are happy with this change because there's more. Earlier it was just 18. Before, it's grown to 45 after. And that's a good thing because more people are happy. But guess who's not so happy about that? You got that. McDonald's is not really happy with this because they only get this much profit. So their profit right here has shrunk. So it used to be 18, and now I actually have to go outside that triangle just to write it. So supplier surplus is here. And 1/2 base times height divided by 2. 1/2 base times height really, so it's 3 units. The base, 1, 2, 3, times how much is people are willing to buy? 1, 2, 3 as well. So 3 times 3 is 9, divided by 2 is 4.5 units. And you can see how much that has shrunk. It used to be 18, now it's just 4.5 units of happiness. So the supplier, the domestic supplier at least, is not really happy with that. It's affected them a lot. Now, what are people going to do about this? So the ones who are not happy are, first of all, business owners, because they're earning less. And they can do two things. They can either produce less or lower their price. Either way, it's going to be bad and they're going to earn less. And because they earn less, they have to get rid of things that make them spend more. And one of the things that makes them spend more, one of their expenses, includes employees, because they have to pay them. So what do? Since they have to make less or make their price cheaper, they're going to tell their employees, hey, we're sorry, but we have to let you go. We can't afford you. And so the employee is not happy with that because now he doesn't have a job. And that's one of the main issues that we have. One of the arguments that are being discussed in economics is that if we invite foreign trade, if there are other people who export to our country, then there's a possibility that the employment will be increased because of that. Now, what are people going to do? They're going to do what they do best. They're going to complain. And so they're going to complain. Let's take this out first. Right. It's kind of messy right here. And we're going to have to fix that. Nothing we can't fix though. We got the line right here. We got equilibrium right there. We got the price level that you see right here. The demand curve that's over, or supply curve rather, that was over here. And then we got the demand curve, which was over here. Alright, so we fixed that kind of. And so now we're trying to introduce the problem. So employees are going to complain because they're starting to lose their jobs because some guy right here sells cheaper hamburgers. And so they're going to complain to the leaders, to the politicians. And they're going to say, hey, you got to do something about this because we're losing our job because of this guy right here who just came in. And so let's say this leader says, yeah, you know, we can do that. I'll take care of you, buddy. We got your back. And one of the common ways that they do this is they set a special tax called a tariff. And I'm going to write that right here. A tariff is basically a special tax for foreign suppliers. And what that basically says is if you want to sell stuff at the United States, then you have to pay this tax. You have to pay it so that you can continue to sell here. And so now what happens? So let's say that the Philippines hamburgers, right? It was here at $3 and it makes it go up. And they say they want to make it, okay, I'm going to tax you $2. So $2 tariff or tax. And so they have no choice. But they're not going to make their hamburgers cheaper because of that. No, the price is not going to stay at $3. It's going to go up to this new line right here. Right, because we tax them. It's going to be that expensive now, which is sad because people really liked cheaper hamburgers. Okay. And so where does equilibrium go? It goes back up and then stays right here. It's no longer here. It goes up right here. And so what this does is, you guessed it, the area of happiness, or the consumer surplus of the people up here, it's grown smaller. And so this is what happens. So right here, we have a line here. This is where the price level was. Consumer surplus is right here. Oh, almost got it there. That is consumer surplus. It has shrunk. It used to be 90 units. Now, if we calculate that, consumer surplus is going to be right here. We're gonna say it is now at $5, counting at 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 7 times 8 now. Oh, divided by 2. So 7 times 8 is 48, 56, and 56 divided by 2 is 28. So we have to remember that this used to be 90 units, but now it's shrunk down to 28 units. Why? Because we tax them. We say, you know, we're gonna charge you for selling in our country. And that's what happens. So there are less people who are happy about that. But however, this line right here, consumers, well, the local consumer at least, they earn a lot more. So their consumer surplus is right here. Right here. So that's their consumer surplus. Or rather, supplier surplus. And we're going to say it's still not big enough for us to draw inside that triangle. But supplier surplus, at least, is a little bigger now. They're going to say, all right, it's bigger. Their base is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 times area right here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 divided by 2. 4 times 5 is 20. It's going to be 10. And that's much bigger than their 9 units earlier that became 10 now. And so lucky them, they are happy about it. And so now comes the interesting part. So if we go back, let's take this out for a bit. So we're going to remove that first. We're going to draw it back in. We're going to put the blue back in there. And so that's what happens. Now, consumer surplus, it's still bigger than it was originally. Originally, it was just in this line right here. It was 18 units, and now it's grown still much bigger than it was before. It was right here, it was right here, and now it's grown to right here. But it's less than we had before. Now, here's the question, the interesting question that we have in economics is what happens to this middle part right here? So this right here. Well, we know that this goes to thanks of the government. Thanks a lot. We know that this is more expensive. And of course, the taxes always goes to the government. It doesn't go anywhere else. So this right here, these are taxes. It goes to the government. Oh. No, we don't want that. But you might be wondering, I might not be so smart because we have 2 areas right here that are not going anywhere. I'm like, yeah, why don't they go to taxes? Because it doesn't. And I'm going to show you guys why. So this right here, we used to have customers 9 and 10. And they said if hamburgers are worth $3, they're going to buy the hamburgers. Like, yeah, we're going to buy hamburgers if it's worth $3. But since it is now worth $5, these two people say, I don't think hamburgers are really worth that much. I'm just not going to eat a hamburger. And so poor Jollibee right here, he loses these customers because they no longer want to buy hamburgers that are worth $5. What about 3 and 4? Well, since what happens is because we change the equilibrium, Jollibee is not willing to sell. So right here, actually we'll mark that right here. Nope, don't want that. So let's see if it works. Right here, on the other hand, is what happens to this spot right here? Well, it doesn't go to taxes. Rather, it's gonna be in a situation where McDonald's are not willing to spend, the price right here, the equilibrium, it's going to be at $5. And right now they're not willing, or they have someone else providing that. They're providing it up here. But what happens to customers, actually not 3, it's actually customers 4 and 5. Erase that. What happens to customers 4 and 5 is that they say they want hamburgers, but Jollibee says we don't have that capacity. We cannot provide that. We cannot provide hamburgers that are cheaper than $5. And McDonald's also says we cannot provide hamburgers that are cheaper than $5. And so this right here just goes to no one. So inevitably that gets lost because no one's willing to sell hamburgers to these two people right here. And so it's just lost. We lose them, which is really sad. And so the point that I wanted to show when it comes to these two, so I just wanted to show you guys the impact that taxes have on foreign governments and basically how international trade affects the way we do things. And so if you're going to ask me, if we should tax people or foreign businesses if they sell in our country, they sell locally, well, that really depends a lot on the situation. For some people, they say they should tax others because, yeah, they're going to lose their jobs. They're going to lose their jobs to other people in other countries who can provide it cheaper. But at the same time, if we tax them, we're going to have these areas here that just goes wasted. There's going to be waste in the government. And in economics, really, you want to have little to no waste at all. But sometimes, I'm going to tell you guys that sometimes the situation, it depends on whether we should tax it or not. If you're going to ask me, should we tax it or not, I'm going to say depends. Because if you're going to ask me if we should tax hamburgers that are being flown here, that we import internationally, I'm going to say no. But what about bad stuff? Bad stuff like alcohol and tobacco and things that really destroy capital, things that destroy resources. Well, I think we should tax those. And so there's really not one very specific answer for all the problems in economics. Rather, we want to say it depends on the situation. But now you are aware of what happens, you can think of what to do and how it affects the economy. And now it's up to you to decide on how you will make an impact. All right, my name is Chris. Thank you so much for listening to this lesson. Hope you all well.